So, Shakespeare said this. This is a quote from him. "The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that give and him that takes." So this Bible story is about mercy. And here's the situation. Saul is the first king of ancient Israel, and he's really losing it. He's kind of lost his mind. He has come to conclude that one of his generals and his court musician named David, a man of great faith and popularity and skill, is plotting against him. That's what Saul has decided. And after an attempt on his life right there in the palace, David takes off and he goes into hiding, and he is followed by some of his own soldiers and some of his servants. So Saul gathers 3,000 of the best soldiers from Israel and goes after him. And while they're on the march, Saul hears the call of nature and stops off at a cave to, well, as most translators say, to relieve himself. The old King James Version had it, Saul went into the cave to cover his feet, whatever that meant. But what happens is the cave that Saul chooses to go into to take care of his needs is the very cave that David and his men are hiding in. So they're like in the back of the cave and trying to be as quiet as they can because Saul is passing by, and who comes into the cave but Saul himself? By himself, of course, because nobody's going in with the king while he does what all kings need to do. So, can you picture a situation more vulnerable than the one that Saul is in right now? He's indisposed, and right behind him is the very person that he's trying to kill. And he doesn't know they're there. And he is occupied. So Saul is very vulnerable at this moment. If you've ever had someone walk in on you while you are similarly occupied, you know exactly how vulnerable you feel and how at their mercy you are, particularly if you've ever lived in a college dormitory, where all kinds of things can happen to you while you should be left alone. David's friends then remind David of a promise that he had been given by God, which was that I will give your enemy into your hands for you to deal with as you wish. And they say to him, David, they have to whisper, obviously, David, this is what we were talking about. This is that moment that you were promised. There he is. He's right there. He doesn't know we're here. This is your opportunity to solve this problem once and for all. So David picks up a long knife and quickly and quietly sneaks up behind Saul, who is busy reading the sports page. And he raises his knife and he cuts off a little piece of Saul's robe. Just cuts off the edge of it, and then crawls back into the cave. Saul never notices. Saul never notices that this has happened. You can imagine why he doesn't notice, but let's say he doesn't. David could have easily killed Saul in that very moment, but he didn't. David had mercy. And to have mercy means that you will not take advantage of someone who has fallen into your power, someone who maybe has greatly wronged you. You decide that you are not going to wrong them in return. There they are, as vulnerable as can be, and you decide you will not do it. Mercy is a powerful force. It has amazing results. The first clear result of David's mercy is quite obvious. Saul is the benefactor of David's mercy. David even tells his friends not to harm Saul because they're ready to kill him. They wanted to get rid of him. But David gives clemency even though Saul doesn't know it. And Saul doesn't die a humiliating and painful death. Let's face it, that's a humiliating death. Saul lives. But David's mercy doesn't only save Saul's life, it saves Saul's soul. Because Saul leaves the cave eventually, not aware of what happened to him, and here's what happens next. Here's what happens next, okay. Soon, David also got up and left the cave. "Your Majesty," he shouted from a distance. Saul turned around to look. David bowed down very low and said, "Your Majesty, why do you listen to people who say that I'm trying to kill you? You can see for yourself that God gave me the chance to catch you in the cave today. Some of my men wanted to kill you, but I wouldn't let them do it. I told them, I will not harm God's chosen king. Your Majesty," that should be look, not loot. "Your Majesty, look at what I'm holding." And he holds up the little piece of fabric. "You can see that it's a piece of your robe. If I could cut a piece of your robe, I could have killed you. But I let you live, and that should prove I'm not trying to harm you or to rebel. I haven't done anything to you, and yet you keep trying to ambush and kill me. I'll let God decide which one of us has done right. I pray that God will punish you for what you're doing to me, but I won't do anything to you." What do you think happens to Saul after this? At that moment. I'm not going to read it for you. You have to tell me what you think happens. He does. He has an epiphany. He does. And what is his discovery? What do you think Saul does after this?
I think he decides he doesn't need or want to harm David.
Yeah, that is exactly right. Well, that's part of it. Anyhow, Mel says he discovers he doesn't need or want to kill David. And there's one other thing that happens. He has a change of heart. He begins to realize that the problem was not David, it was himself and his own paranoia, his own fears that caused this problem, and he then he repents. He literally repents, because to repent actually means turn around, and that's exactly what he does. He turns around there in the wilderness of En-Gedi and turns around and goes back to his home and leaves David alone. Now, for a lot of people, we know this happens. Saul was blaming someone else for his own troubles, his own problems. He had one goal in life, which was to kill David. It was a hatred that was consuming him. And when we hate someone, we're the primary victims of our hate. It's a cancer in our souls. It eats us up from inside when we hate someone. It takes away our own ability to enjoy the life that we're having. David's merciful act is a huge dose of radiation to this anger cancer in Saul's soul. And in that moment, he sees his error, he repents of what he was doing, he loses his hate energy, he goes home, he leaves David alone, and he rests. David's mercy saves Saul's life. Now, here is a little lesser known truth than that mercy has more power than vengeance, more power than punishment. What would have happened if David had killed Saul? What would have happened, do you think? What would have the result have been? Yes, revolt and revolution, violence, war, all kinds of things would have happened had David killed him. Remember, David's in a cave. Saul's army is outside. What's going to happen when Saul doesn't come out? There was not going to be any good result from David killing Saul. David had a choice that day. He had a promise from God that he would have his enemy in his hands and that he could do with him as he pleased. You remember James Bond? You guys have seen James Bond. James Bond has a license. What's the license? Yes, he has a license to kill. Whom may he kill? Anyone that he thinks needs killing, he may do. You remember that was always what happened in the old westerns too, when somebody was, when they were accused of having killed somebody, their defenses, well, he needed killing, you know, and I've heard that defense all the time. He deserved what he got. I know I maybe shouldn't have punched him in the nose, but he said, and we see that kind of thing happen all the time. So this was a test of David's character, you see. David was blameless if he had chosen to kill Saul. He had a license to kill. In fact, he could say he needed it. He deserved it, but he doesn't. First, for two reasons, he doesn't kill him. First of all, you know why David doesn't kill Saul? First of all, he has pity on him. It's a laughable situation. He can see that, how humiliating it is. And second of all, he recognizes that Saul's not a monster. Is there any proof that one would need that someone else is just another person just like you than what David was witnessing with Saul? There he is. He's as human, as vulnerable, as subject to all the other changes. He might be a king, but he's just like us. He's not a monster. So all that majesty and magnificence that goes away with being king kind of faded away in that moment, and David had mercy. And the effect on David is profound too, because when you take vengeance on someone, you are diminished by that vengeance. And you might end the threat against another, but it makes you harder, and it distorts your view of the world. David's killing of Saul would have dirtied his own hands. It would sit on his conscience. Acts of mercy build us up. There are two good reasons. I'm going to close with this. For us to be merciful. First of all is the power that it has to change things. The second one is Jesus commanded it of us. Jesus told us to be merciful. If we are followers of the way of Jesus, then we have to do this because we've been told that this is what God requires of us. Do you know of any places in the Scriptures where Jesus speaks of or exemplifies mercy for others? Give it some thought. Think about it. Pardon? The woman that was about to be stoned, which you spoke about a couple of weeks ago. The woman that had been caught in the act of adultery, and they were going to put her to death. Jesus had mercy on her. Any others? The blind man that he healed at the beginning of this story? Yes, who said specifically, have mercy on me. Dorothy, did you have one in mind?
When he was on the cross.
When he was on the cross, yes. He had mercy on the people that put him on the cross and on the thief that was on the cross with him. Anybody know any others?
The parable of the master and the slave, where he says, I'm not right. Well, it's like they're in like hell or something.
Oh, yeah.
He's looking up and seeing the master.
Right. Yes, it's a story of Abraham and the beggar. Not Abraham, a rich man and a beggar. Yeah, and the beggar is the one that receives mercy. Can anybody finish this Bible verse? Blessed are the merciful. Blessed are the merciful, because they will receive mercy. There are so many places, it's almost hard to come to any other conclusion. Mercy has power to change things, to fix things. It has more power than the other things that we use to try to change things. And it frees us from that cycle of vengeance that we get caught in. And Jesus commands it. And furthermore, I myself, in particular, am counting on a merciful God. I am depending heavily on that for my future in eternity. If God is not merciful, I'm in big trouble. For that matter, if you folks sitting out here do not treat me with mercy from time to time, I'm in big trouble. Raise your hand if you do not require any mercy.
We can cast the first stone.
Yes, you may cast the first stone if you are that person. Mercy is not, without it, there's no human race. There's no human race. Without it, you can't claim to be a follower of Jesus. And without it, you're in big trouble. And that is all I have to say about the quality of mercy. Amen? Amen.
You've been listening to a sermon by Reverend Stephen Carnahan, pastor of High Street Congregational Church in Auburn, Maine. If you feel inspired by what you hear, we invite you to join us in person for worship services every Sunday morning, beginning at 10 o'clock. Of course, you can always listen to Steve's sermons on the web. New sermons are posted every Monday by midday. Please take a moment to explore this website for more information about our church, or visit our Facebook page at High Street Congregational Church, UCC. We hope that God's presence will be known to you every hour of every day, and that God's blessings will rest upon you now and always. See you next week.